Do you feel that in a time when we are more connected than ever, we are drifting away from real human connections, especially to ourselves? I do. Hi, I'm Leticia Latino, and I want to invite you to join me and my very inspiring guests in exploring ways to reconnect to your essence, to your definite purpose, to what makes you tick. Are you ready? Hello and welcome to a new episode of Back to Basics, Reconnecting to the Essence of You. I have a friend of mine on the show today, someone that I have admired for a long time. And when I asked him how to introduce him, besides the fact that I could say he's a Duke University graduate, a mechanical engineer turned entrepreneur, and many, many more things of his impressive career life, he asked me to introduce him as an optimist, an inventor, and a world traveler. Born in Boston, but now happy to call Miami his home. Proud daddy of two beautiful twin girls, Melissa and Sabrina, and also a happily married man, which is a lot to say. So having said that, hello, Richard Conway. How you doing?
Hey, Leticia. It's good to be here.
I'm so happy you said yes to come on the show.
How could I not? You inspire me every day. So if anything I can do to help, I'm happy.
Well, as we were talking before, and people that have heard this podcast might be familiar with, I try to get people on the show that not only have touched my life, but that I know and I'm positive have the capacity to inspire other people. And your journey, to me, is impressive. We met a long, long time ago, probably over 20 years ago by now, as friends. And then I want to give this little piece before we get into, the essence of who you are, but the little piece of information. I met you as a friend, but I knew that professionally you were one in a million. So I said, I'm going to do something with this guy at some point. I don't know what it's going to be, but I will do something. And the day my company decided to develop a software from scratch, you were the guy I called. And that was, my friend, 13 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride.
It's been a wild ride. So I want to share with people why I think you're amazing. And I want to start with your journey to becoming the man you are today. Tell me a little bit about your childhood, who you were, what you like to dream about, what were you passionate about?
Wow, there's a lot of stuff there. I grew up in Massachusetts. I have two brothers and two sisters, and we had innumerable pets. I mean, we had ducks, we had guinea pigs, we had dogs and cats, and at some point we even ended up moving to the country and had some horses and ponies. So it was interesting. It was an interesting up.
Who was the pet lover in your family? Would you say it has to be your mom or your dad? I would guess.
No. I mean, we all love animals. There's some sort of connection you have, I guess, and you either gravitate towards them or you don't. But that being said, it was not just like, oh, we have animals. We had to take care of all of them too. And I got to say, mucking a horse stall in December at 6 a.m. in the dark is not a lot of fun, but it had to be done, right? So that's that was maybe a formative experience of one way.
Well, one of your best qualities is you're a hands-on guy. That I can definitely see where that's coming from. Yeah,
not afraid to dig. That's one thing my dad taught us is, get your hands dirty and don't be afraid of hard work. He's an interesting guy because he was dirt poor as a kid. Literally had to hitch rides to go to church and stuff. Had to heat up water on the stove. His mom was a single mother, but she was a teacher, and he ended up, going to the top of everything. He went to Harvard on a scholarship, became a top orthopedic surgeon. I mean, there's no way I can compete with him, but he inspired us to work hard and do the best we can, and also gave us an appreciation for knowledge and exploration and open thinking. I think those are all good things, and hard work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So besides having the pets, what do you fill your days with? What were you passionate about growing up?
Well, when I wasn't running around in the woods building forts and having adventures, I became a bookaholic at a pretty young age. Once I was in the library and started finding books like Edgar Rice Burroughs and then Isaac Asimov and Robert Heinlein, I became a real science fiction geek as a kid and wanted to be an astronaut at some point and wanted to fly rocket ships and all that. So that was a big focus of mine as a kid, but then nothing was happening in the space industry until now. And now it's really exciting again. I mean, if you look at what's going on with SpaceX and Blue Origin, the commercial industry is relaunching space, and it's becoming an exciting place again.
Yeah. Well, who knows? You're still young.
Still young. Yeah.
So I know how you related these two. So you start growing up and you're a very curious kid. You love to read, which you still do. And you start exploring and you dreamt about maybe being an astronaut. And so what's next? How did you transition into what you're doing now?
Well, for a long time, I did want to be an astronaut or something, or go into the space program or something. And then in high school, my vision started to go. I became nearsighted. Mm-hmm. And back then, I equated that with, first thing I have to do is become a fighter pilot because that's what they do. And then they become astronauts. And so I was like, well, that's not going to happen. But I was still into technology. So I decided to pursue a degree in mechanical engineering. And then that's what brought me to Duke, which was an amazing experience, by the way. I just can't say enough. What a great school.
I believe it.
And the people you meet and the experiences you have were just fantastic. So when I left Duke, my first job was working for the Air Force in a program called the Air Transport Test Loading Agency.
Okay.
And I'd already had a bit of the travel bug. So when I was in college, my roommate had studied abroad, and I joined him in France, and then we basically did the Eurail Pass thing for 9 weeks all over Europe. Mm-hmm. And that was amazing. And so after that point, I totally had the travel bug.
And you went to very, very interesting places.
Yeah, well, that's actually the really interesting stuff comes later. So anyhow, the reason I mentioned that is because then I start working for the Air Force, and it was amazing also. It's one of those things where you're like, you're working for the government, how interesting can it be? But I got to say, it was like the perfect job for me because I got to deal with technology. We got to deal with all the major branches and anything they had to buy that was going to be air transportable. They would come through our office and we would do an analysis to make sure we could put it on planes and stuff, including Titan IV rockets. We actually did a test load where I flew to Colorado and we loaded up these Titan IV rocket onto a C-5 Galaxy, which is our biggest plane, and flew it to Cape Canaveral. And I got to meet astronauts. It was cool.
So you were getting close to your dream already.
In some ways, yeah.
Yes.
And I got to do travel, and I got to do interesting things. So, and a lot of the guys in the office were older and lots of great experience and interesting people, but they were like, I'm done traveling. So anytime travel came up, guess who would raise his hand and jump up and down and say, I'll do it. And I got to do amazing trips. I went to Turkey and Germany and Turkey on one trip. I went to China a long time ago, back right before the Tiananmen Square massacre. I was in China with a government program there, and just fed my passion and enjoyment of travel. So, and then that led to, at some point, after I'd been there about 6 years, and the first Gulf War was over, and they're starting to do cutbacks, and they're offering people early outs. They're trying to have people retire early, and they tried to push me into this promotion to the C-17 program office, which is the new cargo plane, and it's considered a promotion to go there. But I didn't like the manager, and I'm like, well, okay, I think I'm just going to take an early out. And everyone was like, what are you thinking? You're insane.
Yeah.
But at the same point, it was one of those things where I'd been talking to one of my freshman college roommate for years about, let's do a world tour, let's travel around the world, let's go see everything. And so that's what we did. When I was 28, quit my job and ended up traveling for a little over 9 months, backpacking all over Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. And you can't replace that. That is stuff that I'll have forever. Amazing memories. It was a different time back then. Didn't have internet, so communications were tough.
But
wow.
No, it's definitely, and this is a great point for the purpose of what we are discussing here in Back to Basics. Is a lot of people, and I've said this before, they, in talking about what we like to do, and say, oh, it's either I'm old or I have such a good job I cannot leave it. And people think that when you hear stories like yours is, oh, you did that because you didn't have anything else to do or you didn't have a good job. No, you're saying you had a great job with the government.
Had a fantastic job. It was super stable. I was I was on a fast track. I mean, I was a GS-12 at 28 years old. I would go on what they call TDYs or business trips to other bases, and I would basically be almost the same rank as the base commander from a civilian standpoint.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of like when you go to the Pentagon. You can't move your elbows without hitting a general. Everyone gets pushed up. So in some sense, yes, because I was working at Wright Pat, everyone has higher grades than they would normally. But you end up doing interesting things. I was meeting with contractors from McDonnell Douglas, and I would sit with their senior engineers because I was the expert on air transport stuff. And I was young, but we just immersed ourselves in it, and it was very, I got to say, it was a great experience working for the Air Force. A lot of great people there, and I think that was opening as well, because I know people talk down about government workers, but I got to say, there's a lot of great people working for us in the military and other government agencies.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point. That's a great point, and I think it's important that we definitely honor anybody serving, in public service. Yeah. It's quite important. But, the thing that catches me the most is like you're saying, well, I didn't like the manager too much. And so it sounded to me like almost you also wanted to keep traveling, but also on your own terms. Like probably, the traveling with the Air Force was good, but also probably you didn't control too much about where you were going and what you were doing.
Well, sure. It was limited. You have to choose, when opportunities came up, you would take it. And the thing with the job was, it was a good job. And I think it was in many ways very stimulating and everything. But there was a point at which I said, look, this is not really what I want to do. I know I want to do something else. And I feel like I'm getting pigeonholed a little bit. I mean, even though it was a good thing, I think there's other things I want to do. And it turned out not to be career suicide. It turned out to be a very interesting stop along the way, because when I came back, I said, okay, I'm back. I just spent a year. What am I going to do now? So I said, well, let's go get an MBA, and then I'll, go into business of some sort. And while I was doing that, I said, well, I got to work. I just missed the application deadline, so I'll have to wait till next year to go. So I started, while I'm writing my essays and doing the GMAT, let me look for a job. And next thing you know, I landed a great job, regional operations engineering manager for Roadway Global Air. And that was a spin-off of Roadway Trucking. They created an air freight business. And all of a sudden, here I am. I'm doing operations management and performance management for basically the Western U.S. and Canada. And I'm like, well, I guess I don't really need to go to get an MBA at this point. I'm already up the ladder and doing once again, I'm doing interesting things. I'm still traveling, and I felt like I was having an effect on the business. Choices I made would affect how efficient we did our work, and that led to the next thing. And sometimes I feel like I don't take control as much as take advantage of opportunities as they arise.
I love that. And I think that makes you quite unique. And because I've known you for a while, now, and you don't get to meet so many people that said, you know what, I had this idea, and this is also what you and I bonded over, I think, that we have ideas, but we like to pursue those ideas and we like to see them through. Mm-hmm. And while you have many conversations with many people that have great ideas, you see very few that a few months later bring you a physical, mock or the physical product or the thing they built after telling you the idea. And you're one of those people. You, and I don't want to jump ahead, but it's still important. You were talking about building a greenhouse for a few years.
Oh, yeah.
And I know because I heard and I saw people's faces when you were talking about this, and we live in Miami. And people say, well, he's going to buy some land and then build a house, and he's going to be green. And you could just tell people like, this guy is crazy.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm sure I did sound a little bit crazy about it, because once you get into it, I am an engineer. I mean, I studied engineering, although I almost, to be honest, almost any other school I'd been to, I was going to be an English major. Mm-hmm. And my English major in high school was shocked when I told them I was going to study engineering.
Wow. Yeah, you're a great writer.
Seriously, I loved English class. I loved reading Shakespeare. I loved all that. But when it came down to it, part of me wanted to build spaceships, and part of me wanted to, have that literature. But I said, well, I can read on the side, and it'll be much easier to study engineering in school and read on the side. Yeah. So it is good to make things happen. I mean, that's where you feel fulfillment, is when you push something through that you really want to have happen and make it and end up with it. And the house thing, man, that was interesting. I imagine because I saw it. Well, we had some economic issues. We had the big, was it in 2007 when the economy sort of imploded. So my wife, Patricia, and I had been planning to build this house. And as we got into it, we got more and more excited about the possibilities of making it eco-friendly. And since I'm not afraid of technology, I dug in and was like, oh, yeah, we could do this insulation, and we could do these low-E coatings on the windows to keep the heat out, because this is Miami. We don't, if you're in the north, you may want to let some heat in from the windows. But down here, basically everything you want to do is keep the heat out. And so I started digging into all the different options, and it was a lot of fun. It was very interesting. And when you get passionate about something, you don't mind spending the time on it.
That's a great point, because just to make it clear, you had never built a house in your life. You weren't a general contractor, because also people say, oh, well, yeah, he builds houses. No, I want everybody to know that this guy does not build houses. And if you see the house he built, it's amazing. Not only for, the ecological aspect to it, but it's just a beautiful house, and you made it happen.
Thank you.
You visualize it. I think the importance of visualizing what we want.
Yeah. It's worth taking chances on those things. Those were it was a lot of work, and we had issues like as I said, the first economic downturn. We had been waiting for permits for a year, and all of a sudden, our mortgage company calls up, oh, you haven't broken ground yet. Well, we're canceling your construction loan. You have 30 days to pay us back everything that you've taken out. And we're like, okay, well, can we get a mortgage on the property that we bought? No one would give you a mortgage on empty lot at that point. So, that was time to empty my savings and some of my retirement account to pay off the lot. But in the end, we pursued it. We had to wait 5 more years for the economy to come back. And it is gorgeous. I mean, I got to say, I love the house, and it's a joy to be in. And I don't know how can I ever move, because it cannot get better.
Why would you move? You build your dream house, and this is you are building the life you want, and this is
in a great place.
Exactly. But this is another point. It's like, and we've been collaborating through work, but because your entrepreneurship spirit, you also don't like to be in an office environment day in and day out. And you are a great dad and are very much involved, both, of course, your wife and you. But for a guy, you are extremely more involved than most of the guys I know in your kids' life. And I think that's admirable. And this is a choice you make every day, because I know if you wanted to go and get a full-time job, traditional job, you're such a great executive that it would not be too long, like what happened before that you said, let me do my MBA, and next thing you know, you already have a job. And this will happen, but you choose every day to live the life you want. And we've spoken about this even with us, and you say, I want my flexibility. I want to be able to pick up my kids at school, and you live, we all have challenges in our lives and our jobs, but for the most part, you live a great life. And I
have a fantastic life, and it does have trade-offs. I mean, I do, as much as I love being on my own at times and having flexibility, it does, sometimes you're like, okay, I need to get out of the house. And so it's, when I was working in a corporate environment, I enjoyed that too. I'm a social guy. But now it's like different times of life. When I was at that point, I didn't have a wife and kids. We didn't have a dog. And it was all about making things happen. And I would work ungodly hours and travel all the time and whatever. And if I would go weeks without coming home because I'd be like, oh, I'm in the West Coast this week. So instead of going home back to the East Coast, I'll go visit some friends for the weekend and then just hit the next, location I have to go to on Monday. But now I'm only going to have these kids at home for 18 years, and already 8 or that. No, they're 9 now. It goes by fast. And to have that flexibility to say, oh, they're sick today. Okay, I can work from home. It's no big deal. That is worth millions. And to spend that extra time with them every day is it's a fleeting point in their life. And I have to say, I'm selfish. It's a selfish thing to be able to spend that time with them. But it is rewarding as well. But
it's so interesting that you would define that as selfish, because when I'm trying to zoom into what you're saying is you live the life you want. You're one of the very few people that I know, even in meetings, you say life is good so many times that it's contagious.
My dad laughs about it. He thought I coined the phrase.
Yeah,
he said he saw these T-shirts, life is good T-shirts. Hey, he says, Richard, did you start that company? I said, no, someone else said it too,
But it's true. And we're talking about this. And usually when I do the interview, I'm looking for possible titles of what something, and you're right, these interviews called Life is Good. Of course, it just came to me. And that optimism is contagious. But, sometimes I feel that, and I include myself because I'm a business owner and I'm very ambitious when it comes to businesses. When are we selfish truly? When we pursue the, success in our career for our own ego and say where we arrived or what we have achieved? Or where we give the time to our kids and spend more, like you just say, I'm selfish because I like to spend time with my kids and they're going to leave. And that's why I'm taking this path.
Well, it's a balance. I mean, one thing I'm definitely conscious of is I think it's important to strive for a work-life balance. And each will help you with the other. And if you only pursue business success, and that's what you really enjoy, that's great, and pursue it. But I find that there is so much joy you get through your experiences with your kids and with and just other things in life, like going for a run by the water. Like this morning, after I dropped the kids at school, took Sandy, our dog, down by the waterfront in Coconut Grove, and it's a beautiful morning.
Yeah, it's gorgeous today.
Yeah, and there's a marina there, and there's a little crocodile that lives in the area. He was out sunning himself, and you get to see him. I saw him for the first time this year. Apparently, he's been there for a while, but he was out sunning himself today. So he's like 6 or 8 feet long, and he's on one of the docks sunning himself. But his little experiences like that brighten your day. And then when I sit down, I'm like, okay, I just went 3 miles. I'm relaxed. I'm not tense, and I can focus on what I'm going to do. And there's benefits of getting some exercise and then doing some work. And then at lunch, I'll go take the dog out for another walk, which is another luxury to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But I move around a bit. And then when I sit down again after that, once again, I'm not antsy, and I can focus on what I'm doing. So they support each other, mutually beneficial.
Yeah, and I think because I know how you operate, and I was just yesterday with a mindful coach, is you live a lot in the present. Like I noticed that what you just went through, you say, yeah, I did a run and I was there and I was looking at the crocodile and admiring the view. But then you get home and you're able to like switch and be extremely efficient. So I think there's something to be said about the way we work. I heard yesterday that 70% of the time, although we are somewhere, we're thinking about being somewhere else or we're thinking about something else. 70% is being proven on research. We are thinking about something different from what we're actually doing.
And that is a challenge. That definitely, when that does happen, then you're not mindful of what you're doing, and your efficiency goes down tremendously.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you've shared with us, the drives. You're definitely an optimist. Can you share, is there any maybe traumatic experience in your life where you feel depleted from that passion, from what gives you drive, and then you have to reconnect to it and you have to say, I have to get my act together? Is there an experience where you can remember how is it that you got, your drive back?
Well, I mean, fortunately, I haven't had anything that's truly traumatizing. I mean, both my parents have passed away, and that was obviously difficult. But I had time to prepare emotionally because in one case, my father was pretty old and he had been in decline for a while. And in the other, my mother had cancer and then rebounded and then relapsed. And so we had some time to prepare for what was going to happen. But the challenge, I think the biggest challenge is when you're trying to get something, when you're trying to achieve something and it's not happening. Mm-hmm. And it can affect lots of your other parts of your life as well. Like if you're not exercising, then you don't feel as good, and then that affects how well you work, and then also it affects your attitude. So to some degree, I think I'm at my best when I have time to take time out and do things like go for a run or something and clear my mind and take care of my body, because when I do that, I have more energy for everything else.
Okay. No, it makes sense. It's our hobbies and our things that keep us connected to ourselves is so important, and you found a way to design your life to have that on a daily basis or quite frequently. And I think other people that maybe have different types of job, corporate jobs, find it more difficult because you're still measured in many jobs, you're still measured by being there at the office.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. But I think the important thing is, even when I was working, I mean, I've done some crazy jobs. Like when I was in college, I did demolition and construction work. And talk about dirty, sweaty, and it's hard. At the end of but when you're young, it's easier. Your body can handle it. But I could not that I smoked, but I could put a cigarette in the calluses of my palms. It was so, and you'd feel like I'm tough. Nothing could beat you. Mm-hmm. But we would get up at 5, drive to the job site on the South Shore of Massachusetts, work a 10-hour day, drive another hour back, and then we'd play basketball in our work boots. Have pizza and play basketball. It'd be 9:30 or something, and the next morning I got to get up at 5 again. But you have to find something at each point in your life that gives you some joy or some happiness, and whether it's the camaraderie of the people you're with, or a good book, or just getting out and enjoying some good weather. You have to focus on those things to keep you positive. And once you're positive, everything else will follow, because you cannot be defeated. So when we run into a problem, it's like, I don't say, can you do this or not? I go, no, of course we could do it. It's how do we do it the best way is the question.
And that's the other thing why makes you a great business partner. And I always joke around in my sales meetings. I say our VP of development never says it cannot be done. Like I go to my meetings, and when I ask, does your software does X? And I know it doesn't, but I know you, and I know it will if it needs to be. And that's very empowering. And it's just defined by the type of person you are. You say, I don't know how to do this, and you didn't know how to build a house, but guess what? You did it. So,
that's what they're teaching in the schools now. Is that they say I don't know how to do it yet.
yes.
And that's how they're presenting it. And that's very powerful. Once you realize that you can figure it out, you can make some effort and come up with a way, learn it, whatever. Wow! And once you have a success, it positions you for more. So you're really not afraid of anything. Yeah. So at this point, we built together because you were instrumental in how we designed the NAP. But we built a really great asset management tool for telecom, and it's been sold all over the world. I was able to, with my wife, we designed this amazing green house. We pay half the electricity of what most people have for the same size house, and the environment is lovely because of the light. We thought about where the windows should be, so you have good light, but privacy, fresh air. There's so many different components to it, but you learn all that stuff, and it just adds. Everything builds on itself, and it adds to your life. It makes it better.
I think it's fantastic, and everything you said in the last few minutes, I think should motivate anybody listening to this podcast to just go for it. And you say something that is very, very important is keep positive. Like you and I know, and business has been sometimes good, sometimes not that good, but we always say, let's keep at it. Let's keep doing bit by bit. Don't surrender. And you just keep that energy, that positive energy around, and things will start to happen. So I always close, Richard, the interview knowing what makes you tick, asking actually what makes you tick. And you've said a few things, everybody does by this time, but it's funny because you then ask the question and some of people bring something completely that we haven't discussed. Is there anything that makes you tick?
Well,
in particular that you haven't shared so far?
You mean aside from that self-winding watch I swallowed as a child?
Yes.
I think in trying to find enjoyment in everyday things, the camaraderie of good friends, I don't think anything really is better than spending time with good friends. Humor in life and challenges. You have to have stuff to challenge and curiosity. So those, if you mix those up into a little soup or broth or something, I don't know, that those are the components that will really, I think, make life makes me enjoy life and keeps me moving. And
I may add, and make you a joy to be around, because I value your friendship. You are really someone that has such a caliber, both professionally and personally. And one of my mottos became later in my career, I have to work with people I enjoy working with.
That's important.
Yes, and I think we spend a lot of time making customers that don't deserve it happy, partners that don't deserve it happy, and then you start wondering, why am I working with these people? And because this energy they bring into your life affects you.
That's true.
You go into a meeting with someone that's negative, that's ironic, and just the attitude, as you said before, that was so important, and you yourself leave that meeting drained.
Right. Yeah. It's not additive. It cancels out positive energy.
Exactly. I had a teacher in the past. She used to say those were the vampires. They would suck any inch of good energy you have for their benefit. They would spit you out. And
you have to eventually. You can deal with it for a while, but there is a point at which you have to say, okay, I'm going to limit how much time I spend with people like that, because it does take energy to deal with it. And I've known people that I liked, but they were sort of emotional vampires. Like you would always be trying to make them happier. And you realize that you can't do that. They have to be happy unto themselves. And you have to teach, I'm trying to teach my kids, don't be dependent upon others for your happiness. Find ways to make yourself happy, to be comfortable with what you're doing. And when you can do that, now you can give happiness to everyone else too, because you're happy. And I think it's an important thing.
Absolutely. It's a great way to leave our audience with that message. I thank you so much, Richard, for sharing your thoughts, your life, what makes you tick with us today. And I wish you the best of luck. I know you will be doing some more great things, and we'll be seeing some more crazy ideas coming to life, which I'm very happy about, because you are of the people I know. If I wish success and happiness upon anybody, you definitely on the top of my list, my friend. So thank you
thanks,
very
lady.
much. And well, have a fantastic Florida day.
You too. And thanks very much for taking the time to interview me.
Thank you, Richard. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And until the next time.